Let's see how that is. Looks okay. Alright. So I'm Moshe, it's my channel. It's 9:37 in the morning on the 14th of November, a Tuesday. And we're going to talk about recent developments in the world pictures of wars, which are Ukraine being urged to negotiate with Russia by giving Russia all the territory they have already occupied, and then they'll be allowed to get a fast track into NATO. But I don't know how fast it's going to be with Turkey probably standing in the way. And the Chinese, I don't know if he calls himself a president or prime minister, he's coming to Israel, to America tomorrow to see Biden. That's not that common, but it's certainly not all that unusual either, because he came to see Trump. He visited him at Mar-a-Lago, actually, to play golf, I think. And so it's not that of a spectacular event, but it's unusual. And we're going to break that down. But right now, let me go into the chat and make sure everything's functional and do a little housekeeping in there. And go into the chat, make sure we got our sound and picture and all of that. We'll talk about Lebanon plenty. It's going to rain midday today. It rained yesterday. We're getting into winter. That's for sure. It's about time. At least we're not running the air conditioner, but pretty soon we'll have to be running the heat. I'd say by December 1st we'll be running the heat. The highs are going to start being in the 70s. Let me get this finished here. Almost there. Gives people a chance to come in. They get notices and takes a little bit of time. Okay, so let's, being a Bible believing site, let's do our praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 So Biden is scared. The Pentagon are not the village idiots. The ones that are the big shots, the generals, and People like that in the Pentagon are SBOT bureaucrats. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, they're there because they're SBOTs. Okay. People like the majors and the colonels, they're the ones that are doing the work, even the captains. Well, bottom line is they have to know that there's a three-edged sword pointed at America right now to suck them in the Middle East with the war with Iran and to get them more involved in Russia. This is just the mix for the Bloody Mary or whatever it is. It has no alcohol, but I like it. It gives me my cayenne, so I drink it. It's hard to get in Israel. So there's a threat from China with a war involving Taiwan, North Korea involving South Korea, China also Japan. Then comes Guam and the Philippines, and America has deployed a lot of naval assets over there and other assets to counter that threat. And all the functional American big aircraft carriers are away from America right now. One possible exception could be the George Washington, but 8 out of their 11 are not guarding America right now. They're operating in other parts of the world, except that George Washington might still be offshore from America, although it was scheduled to go to the Middle East. I don't know where that ship is. They don't tell you everything. On my Telegram channel, I put a picture some guy did of all the warships in the Middle East area now, counting Eastern Mediterranean and so forth. And they're coming from 10 different countries, counting America and counting Israel. So leaving America and Israel out, 8 other countries, okay? I can't get a clear picture if the UK aircraft carrier and the Italy aircraft carriers are really coming. They said they were, and I can't get any intel on that, so they might have been changed. The UK about a month ago said they're not sending their aircraft carrier, and then I heard several days ago they were, but I don't know how true that is. I can't get a good confirm on that. But there are 2 aircraft carrier groups here. The Dwight D. Eisenhower, also referred to as the Ike, because Ike was Eisenhower's nickname, and the Gerald Ford. And there's lots of other Navy ships. So I'm told there's over 70 Navy ships in the theater here. And of course, you'd have to be pretty slow on current events to think that this amount of naval force has been brought to bear to control Hezbollah and Hamas, who have no speakable navies. Hamas has fishing boats for a navy. Hezbollah and Lebanon have a few boats, but nothing, and they don't even have good air forces, you know. Case in point, the last 2 days, I believe, Israel's been flying low over Beirut, Lebanon, with their fighter jets and breaking the sound barrier from the descriptions I'm getting. When a plane breaks the sound barrier, it'll usually, if it's, over a city, the people in the city will have their windows rattle, doors rattle, dishes rattle. They know about it. And Hezbollah has no reasonable means of defense. The only defense Hezbollah has in this matter is to launch a lot of rockets that they claim to have to go hit Israeli population centers. In other words, a war crime. But nobody bothers them for war crimes, just Israel. They don't care about war crimes. All the horrific things Hamas does, do you hear anybody in the UN talking about we got to try these war criminals? If there's going to be trials of the war criminals, it's not going to be The Hague because Israel's not a member. So they're going to do it either in the civil court or as a military tribunal. And the indications are execute a lot of them that were involved with October 7th massacre. That would be a severe loss of face for Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, all the militias from Iraq and Syria, and the Muslims around the world would really rise up about that, because their position is you can go kill the Jews in Israel, but if Israel tries to kill you, it's genocide, it's horrible, they don't have the right, various things like this. So the Pentagon has to be telling Biden that, listen, if you dig in the Middle East, Russia digs in and attacks Poland or Moldova or both, or Georgia or Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, whatever, right? Poland would be the prime target, and that's the one Russia's gearing up for, by having a massive amount of military equipment in Kaliningrad, right by Poland, and Belarus, an ally, is also built up. So they could hit Poland, and Poland couldn't hold up very well against Russia without NATO. Oh, Poland could, hold on maybe for 2 weeks or a month, but that's it. And if NATO doesn't enter into the fight, well, then NATO loses all the credibility and it falls apart, which is something Russia would love to see happen. So what's going on? They go to Ukraine, the NATO guy, and he says to them, listen, you let Russia have the land they've already occupied, okay? And what's left, you take, we bring you in on a fast track into NATO, so that would assure Ukraine that Russia's not going to then turn around and attack the rest of Ukraine. Well, that's the theory, that's not the reality. First problem is, why would Russia agree to it? They're already occupying the land. Russia's, China, North Korea, and Iran are trying to draw America into this snare, which is found in Jeremiah 50, verse 24. Maybe I should read that. And this is, I read it every day now, but some of you may not have had it read before, so it takes a couple of minutes, it's nothing. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babel, and... Oh, wait a second, I don't know what's going on, I gotta take a call. I'm not taking that. Let's start again. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babel, and thou wast not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. Well, we're not going to have to build the case that the United States is not exactly compliant with the Bible and Jehovah's laws and Yeshua's laws. And, I mean, that's a no-brainer, okay? So, that doesn't mean America won't see the threats. How could they not see the threat from China and North Korea? North Korea hitting South Korea and possibly Japan. And Russia attacking NATO countries while America is stuck in the mud in the Middle East. So the first problem with what NATO is trying to do is I don't think Putin's going to go for it. Putin's going to probably come back and say he wants about 2/3 or 3/4 of Ukraine, which he's not going to get. So that's probably not going to go anywhere. The next step to push Ukraine to do this is to tell Ukraine the flow of weapons to keep them in the fight are going to stop. Now, several countries have warned they can't keep giving weapons, NATO countries, but America keeps wanting to give them weapons to keep the fight going. America sees this as drawing down Russia's military resources, breaking Russia's morale, the morale of the soldiers, the morale of the people, causing dissension against Vladimir Putin. So they want to have Russia use up a lot of their weapons, and Russia has been, or Russia's used up the weapons they consider disposable, but they still have their reserves to protect Mother Russia they won't tap into. So along comes Iran, and Iran starts supplying a few months ago Russia with drones, artillery shells, ammunition, and missiles. The effect of this is that America and NATO now have to give more weapons to Ukraine because the fight will linger on. So America, right then and there, was super peeved at Iran. Okay? Really mad. So the purpose of the Ukraine thing is to get Russia to back off. The hope is that Russia would take their piece of Ukraine and go home and have a parade and a celebration and commemorate the war heroes of Ukraine, blah, 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 and stay peaceful for a while. But that's not going to happen because Russia wants to keep America on edge. Russia wants to see America dump more and more weapons into Ukraine and deplete their weapon supply. See, this is a snare that these four countries are working on America. Okay? So I do not think that this Ukraine settlement with Russia is going to go anywhere. I would say slim to none. If Ukraine runs out of the weapons supply, the steady stream of weapons coming in 2 to 4 weeks, it'll be over with him. Then what happens is Russia occupies Ukraine and got a massive buffer zone from attacks on their border, but not a complete buffer zone, but a substantially nice one. Now, the thought would be Russia would take a few months, like a half a year or something, to regroup, replenish their weapons supply, and draft more troops and train them and stuff like that, and then perhaps embark on a imperialistic gallivant around Europe, trying to get former USSR countries back into the Russian Federation. And this is a nightmare for NATO, European Union, Biden, etc. I do not see this working, okay? Russia knows, and China knows, and Iran and North Korea knows if they stick to their guns and hang tough, they will bust America out and invade it. And that is the Bible, okay? Along with other nations, most likely Muslim states, allies of Russia, and things like this. So Biden is trying to wiggle out of this thing. So he asked or invited the Xi Jinping, however you pronounce this guy's name, Xi Jinping, whatever, the Chinese president, I believe he calls himself, to come to the White House, and the guy's showing up tomorrow, of all things, not next year or next month, tomorrow. So the guy obviously cleared his calendar and is coming over here on what I would say rather short notice. Usually these head of state trips from very large countries to another very large countries are planned, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. They don't do it spur of the moment. Why does Biden want him there? Well, NATO's trying to calm down Europe and Russia to take him out of the snare. It won't work. And Biden is trying to see what he could do with China to get him out of the snare there. Now, the United States could handle China and Iran at one time, or Iran and Russia at one time. Trying to handle Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea, plus others like Venezuela and Cuba, probably. These are small players, but trying to handle all of them at the same time is too much for America. How the generals would portray it, I don't know, but it's too much. And China and Russia and Iran could open up other fronts, like the Panama Canal. So, will Biden sell out Taiwan? Throw it under the bus. In other words, he says, look, we don't want any big wars. Taiwan doesn't mean much to us. We'll stop giving Taiwan weapons, and we'll slowly withdraw our forces out of Taiwan, and we're not going to come fight you if you attack Taiwan. Now, what will China do or say about that? I doubt Biden's going to ever do that. Come on. He's probably I don't think he's doing that. I think he's calling Xi Jinping over here to try to work with the guy and see if they could calm down. Which China's not going to calm down because they're working the snare. Now, the goal of China would be to have a war with America, but contained in other countries, not the Chinese mainland. Like, it's okay to fight in North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Guam. All these places are fine. China doesn't have a problem fighting there. China just doesn't want to fight on their homeland. Of course, it's too devastating. Trump started it, and Biden continued it, tremendous sanctions on Russia and China, and they've wrecked their economies. So Russia and China, and Iran too, Russia and China have to do something about America other than submit. If they went to Biden and Russia says, make us the 51st star on your flag, Biden might go for it, but, that's not happening. Okay? So I imagine the first probe he's going to do with the Chinese guy is a threat. It'll be gentlemanly and subtle, but a threat about devastating, overwhelming firepower already in the Pacific region that could be unleashed on China, and he may go so far as to tell China if something like this blows up, you could expect fairly immediate attacks in your homeland to try to get China to back down. It won't work. It won't work. They tried getting Iran to back down. It didn't work. See, in World War II, to give you an idea of how the Oriental mind works, although the Chinese and Japanese are different, But then again, they're not that different. During World War II, the Japanese team for negotiations through their embassy was negotiating with America right up until Pearl Harbor happened. Then America expelled them. They basically, I guess, house arrested them or something, put them back in the embassy or the consulate, got them out of the country. So that would tell me what the president of China is doing. He's just negotiating with Biden just before the big war starts. He's making Biden feel at ease, making Biden think everything could be okay, and it's not. Now, Iran has been voraciously attacking the American bases in Iraq and Syria. Something like over 70 attacks with regularity. They just announced yesterday they have a new missile. This is what Iran says, and you got to take it with a grain of salt this big. They have a new guided missile, which means it's a smart missile. They can change the course during the flight and this and that, okay? So it would be a little difficult to project the trajectory of the thing before it actually gets into the borders of the country. And it's a short range missile. It's, I don't know, 100, 150 mile missile. And they're going to deploy it with a 180 pound, it can go up to 180 pound warhead, which is a big warhead. And they're representing it to be highly accurate, and they're telling America that they're going to use this on the American bases now. Okay, does that mean that they're going to do it? Well, probably. Most likely they're going to do it. They're trying to suck America into the snare. And America is not really going to be able to do much to Iran other than bomb Iran. That song, Bomb Iran. All they're going to be able to do is bomb Iran. Now, their plan is to do a ground invasion, but it's a scary plan because military experts are hypothecating 600 to 800,000 soldiers are needed for America and her allies to occupy or invade Iran. Now, the American military is not that big, and are they... Well, is America really going to raise this many troops? Maybe the NATO countries could come up with 50,000 troops, maybe not much more. They could draw from Jordan, UAE, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, who are all opposed to Iran. Maybe they get another 50,000. Make a long story short, they could probably raise a total of about 100,000 soldiers, maybe 150,000. But it's still at least 500,000 are going to have to be, have to come out from American military forces. And that is something, if America does, it's going to leave itself remarkably undefendable. Let's see what global firepower says for the American number of people in the military. It's not, surprisingly, it's not that high, but let's look it up. I don't like to look at Wikipedia for military strength. I don't. I ignore Wikipedia. Um, America has 442,000 reservists, which they could activate easily, and they got about 1.4 million active. They have no paramilitary, so they got about 1.8 million in the military total. So if they had to come up with a 500,000, they could. And I think it's foolhardy, but that's what I think they'll do. If it comes to it, they're not happy about it. Let's be clear. Now remember, out of that, 660,000 is in the Air Force, and the Air Force is not really suited for ground invasions. And the Navy has 731,000. And the same thing, they're not suited to go become infantry and do a ground invasion. So that gives you about 1.4 million are in naval or Air Force units. America's air power is overwhelming. It's 13,300 total planes, almost 2,000 fighter jets, which is astoundingly high. And 426 tanker planes, incredible. 5,600, rounding it up. 5,600 helicopters. 5,000. That's just crazy. America has 5,500 tanks, which is not that high compared to other countries in the world, but it's way the heck up there. Okay, and they got 1,000 self-propelled artillery, which again is not way up there, but it's a lot. And 1,339 towed artillery and 1,700 multiple rocket launchers, and that's high. That's quite a bit. Now, in their Navy, they excel. There's a total of 484 Navy vessels, 11 big aircraft carriers, 9 helicopter carriers, the smaller ones, 92 destroyers. That's an incredibly high number. 22 corvettes, 68 submarines, which other countries are up there too, but that's pretty high. Okay, so America, if you take out of their, 1.8 million or whatever it is, total military, you take out the Air Force and the Navy, there's not that much ground fighters left. So they'd be putting most of their ground fighters into the Iran theater, which means they would be fighting in Europe and the Pacific with their Air Force and Navy, which could work. What does infantry do in a war today? They can't walk out in the battlefield with their rifle and their bayonet. It's pointless. It's about mortars, artillery, rockets, missiles, bombs, okay? It's not about shooting your rifle at the enemy like World War II or maybe Vietnam or the Korean War. It's completely different. Drones are also out there. So the ground soldiers are just really to start occupying and maintain dominion over captured cities and countries. So America is likely going to go into this big snare any day now. And remember, China and Russia are going to keep the fighting away from their homelands. Iran and South Korea and North Korea cannot do that. North Korea would attack South Korea, and they're going to get hit in their homeland, and they know it, but they don't care about their people. And they're going to have a lot of tunnels and underground bunkers, and the missiles, the rockets, and the bombs, and the drones, and the artillery are not going to have much effect. You saw an immature version of this in Gaza. Imagine a very more secure and sophisticated example of this in Iran and North Korea. The war with Hamas is drawing to a close. As of, I think, day before yesterday, we had destroyed 300 tunnel entrances, exits. It's the same thing. One of the IDF officers was showing a video of a tunnel, and what it was a camouflage trapdoor. So the trapdoor looked like it probably had shrubbery on it or dirt or something they could have glued it on, and you know, it looked like it was probably a wooden trapdoor. Okay? And once you got inside, there was a rope if you wanted to shimmy down, and there was a ladder, a vertical ladder. You just climb up, right? Like what you see on Navy ships sometimes. It's not extremely fast, you know, and the depth of it was, I think it was about 60 or 70 feet, they said, to hit the bottom. And so you can't jump down. I mean, you could jump down and it's probably not going to be survivable. It's like, you know, jumping off the roof of a 6-story building. And very few people are going to survive that. All right. When you got down, it was a little round opening, and it was the perimeter of the opening was made out of like a water main pipe. It didn't look like a very sturdy pipe, probably aluminum or some polyester, and it was probably about a meter in diameter, something like that. And when you got down to the bottom, you were not in the tunnel, you were in the entrance exit. And there was a metal door that the IDF officer said was bomb-proof, well, bomb-resistant. Nothing's bomb-proof. You put a 500-pound bomb there, it's going to blow it. You know, come on. But it would probably stop hand grenades and light explosives, stuff like that. It was probably a heavy steel door that would stop bullets and stuff. So if you found the tunnel entrance and you came down, you would be able to get to the bottom of that tunnel entrance, but you're not going to gain access to the tunnel itself, because that door, that bomb-proof, bulletproof door, would make it pretty difficult to get an egress. You would have to plant a substantial explosive, maybe like, you know, 4 or 5 pounds of C4 or something like that at the where the door, joins and locks, to blow the whole wall out or something. So it would be no big deal. You'd have to plant the charge, climb up the ladder, get away from there, remote detonate it, and then come in. And it would probably destroy or knock unconscious anybody right near the tunnel entrance. But if somebody was 100 meters into the tunnel, they'd probably be unaffected, and they could just start loading the entrance with bullets from their assault weapons while somebody tries to go through. So it's a problem. What the IDF is doing instead, because they don't want massive casualties, is they're destroying the entrances, exits, so that they can't do their tactics, which is to slip out through a tunnel entrance or exit and attack the IDF tanks and soldiers with RPGs and shoulder-fired missiles and machine gun fire from their rifles. I don't know them to have squad machine guns. They probably have a few, but I don't see them running around with those. A 50 caliber, is going to weigh at least 60 pounds. How do you climb up and down the staircase, the ladder with that and run around with it? So by blowing up the entrances and the exits and stopping them from using them, like that little tunnel where the ladder is gets all collapsed, so they can't go in and out. As of 2 days ago, I believe we had 300 of those entrances destroyed, and we're probably running at the rate of 50 to 100 a day. So we'll eventually whittle it down, so they're going to have very few entrances and exits left. And that's going to stop them from shooting the missiles, of course. Because the missiles, or the rockets, whatever you want to call them, can't be launched from inside the tunnel. They got to have an exterior launch site. Okay? Their preferred way of doing that is to set the missile launchers up near a school, hospital, residential houses, anything to use human shields. We have videos of them shooting out from the entrance, the main entrance of one of these hospitals in Gaza at the soldiers. Which is proof positive that these morons are in the hospital. But they're forcing people to stay in the hospital as human shields. You see, they're grabbing on with their fingernails so close to the end. Now let me take a look at the chat and see if there's any questions or something I need to deal with in here. Good question. Do you think U.S. really has your back, or is it just self-interest over the oil fields? Well, it's not just the oil fields. It's Iran. It's about Iran. Okay? This thing going on here in Israel that started October 7th was a provocation to suck Iran in. Okay? And or to make Iran look bad and things like this, so they could justify bombing Iran. Iran has a number of big problems for America. One of which is if war breaks out in the Pacific and with Russia. Now, mind you, America thinks it could handle fighting in the Pacific and in Europe with Russia. I don't think they could. But I think Russia realizes they can't if you add the Middle East in. America realizes that. So Biden is scared. And you go to the generals if you come up with a plan, we could do this, and they come up with a plan. But then Biden sits there and says, how many world leaders over history have been destroyed by mistakes their generals make? Many. Many. So he's scared. Biden is no warrior. Okay? If things go bad, he gets killed. He knows that. Obama is rumored, I can't Sustain it, but it says that he gives Biden advice to varying degrees, I don't know. But Obama's no warrior either. The Pentagon guys are warriors, and they're shackled by the politicians with all kinds of crazy agendas, hidden and not hidden. So Biden is between a rock and a hard place right now, and that's what you see with this hesitation, and that's why you're seeing negotiations with Ukraine and Pacific. China, he's trying to reduce the threat level to America. It's not going to work. If he didn't have to worry about Russia and he didn't have to worry about China, he would invade Iran. Okay? But he has to worry about them big time. There's another threat on the horizon that's huge that they don't talk about. China and India do not get along. They have had artillery and mortar fights over this border dispute line in the Himalaya Mountains, 14,000 miles up. And China has grabbed some land that India laid claim to about a year ago, and they put military bases on it. Along comes Pakistan, who's also no friend of Iran. And they're conducting military exercises right now or next week with Iran. China, rather. I mean, Pakistan's conducting exercises with China. They're allies. And the chances of China starting a war with America and then finding out that Modi in India was waiting for China to get overextended, fighting America on several fronts, then he pushes in to that section of China and takes that land back and then some more. So China's got a problem over there. Does Biden push the buttons for China? No. For India? No. No, India doesn't let anybody push their buttons. India pushes their own buttons. They don't play that game. They're big enough and strong enough, and they're not going to do it. So that's what America's agenda is, and they're just using this whole thing to get the thing started. And that's why there's over 70 warships here. It's absurd to think they need that kind of firepower to fight Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis. Well, the Ezekiel War, which is called Gog and Magog, is not anywhere near starting. This is the false teachers that teach you this crap. It says right there in Ezekiel 38 that we're living without bars and Israel's living without bars and walls and peace and safety. And we have cattle and gold and silver. Now, 9.6 million people are citizens in Israel and 2.5 million are living at the poverty line. That doesn't sound like much cattle, gold, and silver to me. And living it without bars and walls and peace and safety? You see what's going on here, and it's been like this for many, many years. We've never been living like peace and safety without bars and walls. It's never happened yet. What the false teachers in the churches are concealing from you is the Zechariah 12 battle. And that's the next war. And you see the two witnesses in there burning the enemies up on the right hand and the left hand. And that's Zechariah 12. I'm not going to go into that because I've gone into it a million times. You just go through my videos in YouTube and you'll see all kinds of Bible studies on that. My videos are mostly under the live section, not under videos in the YouTube channel. So if people are telling you Gog and Magog is coming, in my estimation, it's more than 10 years away. But Zechariah 12, which is Jacob's trouble. Remember, great is Jacob's trouble, but he will be saved out of it. That's in Jeremiah 30. That's the only place that appears. Gog and Magog, they don't get saved out of it. Not all of them. Okay? So it can't be that. It's Zechariah 12. And that could happen any day. Okay? The nations surround Judah and Jerusalem, which is the land we have now, and lay siege to it, like we did with Gaza first. You surround them first. And then the two witnesses burn them up on the right hand and the left hand. So there's not much of a war, except we get rid of them. And Jeremiah 30:11, which is right in there with the birth pangs, right up there with the travail, which is the giving birth of the nation in a day. Now, them getting born in a day is like the people in the churches getting born again. It's the same thing. They know God. They're God's children when they get born again. It's not this nonsense in 1948 with the demonic UN. Come on. You got to get away from people that teach you this garbage. They're trying to conceal the truth from you, and they know how to do it. Subs numbers are unknown, correct. I'm guessing there's probably at least 6 to 10 subs floating around the Middle East right now from America, but I do not know. Is Babylon Russia? No. Babylon is, the daughter of Babylon is the United States. If you read Jeremiah 50:51, it's rather inescapable. Then Jeremiah, Russia is not Babel, Babylon is in Arabia. No. Let me explain. The old Babel is what we would call Iraq today. The daughter of Babylon, these are the clues to the daughter of Babylon, and you do need to read Jeremiah 50 and 51 for yourselves. It says that she is on many waters, okay? Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia are deserts. What waters? Rome is on many waters, where the Pope is, the Vatican, and all that. Well, I'll be the first to admit the guy probably has 100 bottles of holy water over there, and they have water fountains, and they have toilets, and they got statue fountains that spritz water up in the air. But what does America have? The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Great Lakes, the Gulf of Mexico, 8,000 rivers, and probably about that many lakes. America is the great voice. Now, who listens to the Saudis? Mecca and Medina is in Saudi Arabia. Those are the common false teacher things they say is the daughter of Babylon. Nobody listens to Saudi Arabia. Who listens to the Vatican? Well, I'll tell you who listens to the Vatican, maybe. There's America and a few Christian countries in Europe. They don't obey him, but they pay attention to him. But who ignores him? The billion Muslims ignore him. The billion Buddhists ignore him. The communists ignore him. Russia ignores him. Israel more or less ignores him. The Hindus, the billion Hindus ignore him. He's not the great voice. The hammer of the whole earth, the Pope, goes around now waging war on other countries. Saudi Arabia goes around waging war on other countries, or does America do it? It's America. It says the nations collect in her. Where do they go? They go to the UN in New York, and they meet there. I could keep going, but it's America. I'm not sure how much of the Wagner Group is in Syria, but I did hear that too. And America said if they start fighting, it's going to be treated as 100% the same thing as if Russia sent troops into Syria. So I haven't seen or heard anything about them fighting. I would have. I haven't. And I'm not sure they're really there in force or at all. I don't know. But we haven't heard anything about them. Somebody mentioned Jeremiah 40, verse 23. We'll read that. I'm always happy when people put scriptures up, because then we know we're dealing in the real world rather than people just come along and start talking about, you know, whatever they want to talk about. Wait a minute, I got an issue here. Hold on. There is no Jeremiah 40, verse 23. Jeremiah 40 stops in verse 16. So I can't do that scripture because you incorrectly designated it. It doesn't exist as a scripture. But if you want to make a correction and put it up, I will. I'm not going to tell you Wagner's not in Syria and Libya. I'm not. Libya, I believe you. Yeah, I believe I've read that too. But don't know what. Look, what you need to fight with is you need a navy and you need an air force and you need an infantry. And Wagner has no navy and air force, you know. So, you know, they're commando type. They're useful in, you know, skirmishes like in Ukraine because they could fight the other side's infantry and stuff like that. They could do sabotage behind the lines, you know, like Navy SEALs, but it's not going to hurt Israel. See, the Muslim terrorist nations in the Middle East have come to the conclusion that if they build thousands and thousands of immature missiles and rockets and dig a lot of tunnels and underground bunkers, that they could attack a modern state like America or Israel and get away with it because they just go underground and the bombs aren't going to work very effectively. If you hear snoring, it's my dog, Chief. So it's not going to work very effectively. And we look at what happened in Hamas. Did it work very effectively? We bombed over 3,000 targets and they're still launching missiles and fighting. Get the picture? Will Hamas lose? Yes. Is it close to the end? It's close to the end. The 300-mile tunnel network they call the Metro after the London subway tubes is, you know, if they got 300 miles and we closed 300 exits already, which is a 2-day-old figure, they might have another 300. I mean, that might take another few days to close those. But once you get about 80% of the tunnel entrances and exits closed, the functionality of the tunnel system is diminished probably by, 80%. It's just not that functional. We are managing to collapse tunnels. They bomb them and they cave in. We're using penetrator bombs, which you can adjust them and they go down so many feet and then they explode. And those are rather heavy bombs with hard metal, and they seem to be somewhat effective in collapsing the tunnels. This is what you're going to see. We're very close to stopping the rockets. we got control over Gaza City. There was a picture taken yesterday, it's on my Telegram, of a Israeli Special Forces unit. It looked like it was probably a platoon or something inside the Hamas Parliament building in Gaza, posing for a funny picture, like a souvenir picture, you know. And we got so many tanks running around Gaza City, we're having tank traffic jams. Really? So the people in Gaza City are shocked. They never thought that they would see Israel occupy it. But they did. Today, I mean, it's been like that for days now. They come out from tunnels and they have missile launchers and missiles hidden in places. And they run to the missile launcher, fire a bunch of missiles, and then go back into their tunnels and hide. Okay? And the tunnel exits, entrances, same thing, are camouflage trap doors. So we're learning more about them, okay? Like in the courtyards of educational institutions and hospitals and things like that, they dig a pit in the ground, maybe 5, 6 feet wide and 15, 20 feet long and down about 4 to 6 feet. No concrete, no covering, it's open. And there's a missile launcher in there and some missiles, and they elevate the missile launcher to the desired trajectory from inside the pit. And they load it, they prime it to go with electricity, I believe, and then they probably have to get out of the pit because of the flames. And they have a wire or a radio control, and they push a button and the missile launcher starts to fire. And then they run back into their hole, and they probably put a cover over the missile launching pit, which could be they push an old bus over it, or they could put park benches over it, or they could take a piece of 3/4 inch plywood which has dirt on it and everything and shove it over the pit. And from the air, from drones and reconnaissance flights, it'll look like it's the ground. We have seen them in the past launch rockets off the roofs of hospitals. They also have put rocket launchers next to hospitals, maybe, 25, 40 feet away. And they fire that way, and they put them in between residential buildings, and they fire that way, so it's hard for us to get them. But now that we're on the ground, we'll see these missile launchers, and we'll take them out. So it's, every day there's going to be fewer and fewer missile launchers, although I have to admit that Hamas is pretty well determined to keep trying. America will not want to let me rephrase. I don't see America killing 45,000, Israel killing 45,000 Hamas warriors if they decide to stay in their tunnels and not come out, and they can't launch missiles. I mean, it's a problem for Netanyahu. What the heck does the guy do? I mean, what would you do if you were him? The missiles stop from Gaza, occasional harassing attacks where they rush out of a building and shoot RPGs and whatever at our tanks and soldiers, and they get killed, and that's dead end for them. Would you go and kill 45,000 soldiers? I mean, first of all, how would we kill them? collapse the tunnels, put 100,000 gallons of gasoline in the tunnels, and call the Marlboro man to flick a cigarette down there? And what do we do? I'll think about that. I'll be back in a minute. Netanyahu's got a dilemma here. And Biden's not going to be a big fan of kill all 45,000. The cries of genocide will be deafening. So what do we do? And where do we put them when it's over? You see the problem? Where do they go? What do we do with them? So I hope you've thought about the dilemma that Israel has with what do we do with Hamas? I made myself a cup of tomato soup. I haven't eaten anything yet today. And my water bottle got discombobulated. Where did it go? Alright, we got it back. So, what does Israel do? Well, here's the best move for Israel. And I'm cynical, you know, and Israel is playing hardball here. We're fighting for our existence, you might say. Well, we're not, because we know what the Bible says, but they don't know that. When the war with Iran and America breaks out, there's not going to be that many eyes on Hamas. And before the war with Iran breaks out, we're going to full attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, with or without America. And that will probably happen in a handful of days. It could happen tomorrow, the day after, the weekend, even next week, but it's not far away. Not at all. So delicious soup. It's made from a powder, but it's still good. So Hezbollah has been pushing us and pushing us and pushing us. Flying our fighter jets over Lebanon and breaking the sound barrier is a warning. You see, these crazy people, they think having immature missiles and rockets in the thousands takes the place of an Air Force and a Navy. And a big infantry, which they don't have either. Hezbollah has between 50,000 and 100,000 combatants. 50-50 reserves and regulars. So 100,000 is probably not likely, and 50,000 is probably low. So let's just take a whack at it and say 75,000. So they got 37,500 reservists and the same amount of regulars. They got a pathetically small amount of old tanks. They don't have any anti-aircraft systems that are going to stop Israeli stealth jets or F-16s or the American jets. There's nothing they got. We fly freely over Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, like we fly over Jerusalem. Okay? We just started bringing more armor up to Lebanon. There's not much left of the fight with Hamas. Okay? Now, some of the things Hamas could do that are insane, but you're dealing with insane people. Look what they did on October 7th. What did they think we were going to do? Just say, listen, why don't you build ovens and we'll just line up and you put us in the ovens? Or build a Warsaw ghetto again? What are they, nuts? Yes. They could try bonsai attacks on the Israeli forces in Gaza. A bonsai attack is a term from World War II with the Japanese, where they did not believe they were going to come back from the attack. They would break cover if they were in trenches and bunkers and just charge the American forces who were mowing them down with machine guns, mortars, artillery, rifles, and just hope to get close enough to some Americans to shoot them and bayonet them. And die with honor. What do they tell them? That was die for the emperor, who was, they were representing it before World War II as he was God or God's representative or something to that effect. What are the Muslims being told? Well, you're going to be a martyr. You're going to immediately go to heaven and you'll have your 71 virgins or whatever the latest count is. So they might do this. Now, they can't squeeze 20,000 out of the tunnels at one time, but they can get up probably in groups of a few hundred. And what happens then? We mow them down. And then you have outcries of genocide around the world. But we'll still mow them down. That's why we operate with armor. They have stormed out of the bunkers in groups of, like 15, 20, 30, and they rush the tanks. And they try to break into the tanks and they try to break into the armored personnel carriers. You could take a tank and drive it through a mob of 1,500 people and nobody's going to break in. Okay? The same with armored personnel carriers. They're not going to get in. And then they try to come up on the tank and put improvised explosive devices on the tank and blow it up. This is true kamikaze behavior. Kamikaze were planes in World War II. They were usually on aircraft carriers, Japanese planes, and they held a ceremony. They got dressed in white with scarves and their dress clothes, the pilots. And they had a ceremony and how brave they were, and they were, serving the emperor, the god, or whatever. And they gave him a shot of sake, and they put him in a plane. And the plane was a big bomb. And it had enough gas for them because they had a critical gas shortage. It had enough aviation gasoline or aviation fuel to get to the American fleet that they were going after and attempt to blow it up and not come home. They were not expected to come home. Okay? And these planes hit plenty of American ships and killed our sailors. The defense systems were archaic then compared to today. That's a kamikaze attack and a bonsai attack, okay? And they're doing the same thing, but they're not calling it that. They got a different flavor for it with martyrs and stuff like that. But it's evil leaders sending these guys out to their death because it's the only way they could hold up against the enemy. If they were trying to run low casualties, they couldn't fight. They can't operate the way Israel operates. Drones are kind of a different twist, but not that substantial of a threat. We're shooting the drones down like crazy from Lebanon. Now, America may attack Iran while we're attacking Hezbollah at the same time in a close proximity. What America's going to do first, before they attack Iran, and I don't think they're going to attack Iran today or tomorrow. What they're going to do first is they're going to clean out these militias that are puppets of Iran that are attacking the American bases vehemently in Iraq and Syria, day in, day out. And Iran just told America, we're upping our game with a guided missile that's going to be harder for you to take out with a large warhead. So they're going to try to kill and hurt more soldiers. Biden has not had the guts to really attack them. He sent 2 F-15s or F-16s the other day to bomb them. He should be sending 22, not 2. Biden still thinks he could come along and sing "Give Peace a Chance" to these terrorist countries and it'll work. They laugh at him. It doesn't work with them. Iran told them, we don't care about your aircraft carriers, and they are operating in action the same way. They're setting the snare. Biden's falling into the snare. The snare looks good when you go in. There's a piece of food in there. The animal goes in to eat the food. When he starts moving the food, the trap door closes. He's in there and he can't get out and doesn't know what to do. That's what's happening to Biden. But he's got more vision. He sees the snare, but he doesn't know what to do except continue. He's trying to give the peace thing going, but it's not working. The United States has destroyed the economies to a severe level in North Korea, in China, in Iran, and in Russia. If they don't take action and Biden just continues with the sanctions, they're going to be in dire straits. They're already in a bad way. Okay? They really are. This game they played with bricks didn't bail them out. These guys got to do something. And this is the something they came up with. And it's in the Bible. It's going to work. It's going to work. They're going to keep the fighting out of China, out of Russia. North Korea is inescapably going to have fighting on their turf. And so will Iran. But Iran is so well dug in under the ground, they could sustain. A lot of their stuff will be blown up. Their oil refineries, their oil wells, their port facilities to offload oil into tanker ships. Their 1,500 go-fast boats got to be destroyed. Their navy got to be destroyed. Their aircraft is small and mostly in disrepair. It's not much of a threat. They're old planes, but they'll destroy them every chance they get. They'll destroy the tanks every chance they get. They'll destroy all their radar. Every radar operation in Iran they'll destroy. They're doing it with a beach invasion. They're not going to go through Azerbaijan or Iraq or Kuwait. They're not going to be able to do that. They've got to go in by sea. Well, it's pouring out there now. To go in by sea, they got to knock out the Iranian 1,500 go-fast boats. And they got to knock out the Iranian Navy because they don't want their troop transports being jeopardized. So there'll be a lot of general attacks in Iran, but mostly in the south by the coast, by the Persian Gulf area. This is evidenced by the Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier group going over to the Sea of Oman, which is where the Persian Gulf opens up into. So they're, I think, 180 miles away from Iran. But Iran doesn't have a line of sight on them, so it's not so simple to hit them with missiles. Also, the Dwight D. Eisenhower doesn't just drop anchor and sit there, so they could send a little fishing boat out there and get a GPS coordinate on where it is and try to get a missile to hit it or a drone. The boat moves around all the time. It's, buzzing around 25, 30 miles an hour all the time. And they ain't getting near that boat. And Dwight D. Eisenhower got aircraft constantly flying overhead protecting them. 24/7, without stop. And it's got all kinds of radar and sensors. You better believe there's a submarine with it, if not two. And it's got 3 escort boats, they're destroyers and missile cruisers. And they got sensors and stuff. We really ain't getting to get a fix on that boat. So they could try blind shotting, at the boat with their weapons, and good luck with that. when the time is right, the Dwight D. Eisenhower will go in the Persian Gulf. If a war breaks out with Russia and China, Iran has mutual defense treaties with China and Russia. They control the Houthi rebels. The Houthi rebels can control ships going in and out of the Red Sea, down by the Arabian Sea at the bottom, because there's a little pincher point by Yemen, and they could close that off with missiles, rockets, even artillery, and maybe even mortars, but they could definitely close it off. You hit 2 or 3 ships, all the insurance companies are going to say no more insurance in the Red Sea. The boats are insured. The boats are very expensive. That would be grain ships, oil tankers, container ships, any kind of ship. The load on the ship, the cargo won't be insured, and the crew won't be insured. What do you think oil prices will do? Wait, let's say Iran does the same thing in the Persian Gulf. Now you're going to see oil prices go from something like $85 a barrel to $200, $300 a barrel. People won't afford to go to work. If gas in America goes to $8 or $9 a gallon, people aren't going to be able to go to work. America's loaded with SUVs and pickup trucks. What do they get in rush hour commute traffic? Maybe 12 a gallon, 10 a gallon in the rush hour commute? Not much. Let's say they use 2 gallons each way, 4 gallons round trip to go to work at $8. We pay $8 now in Israel for diesel. So they're spending $32 a week on gas, or $160, $32 a day, $160 a week, $600-700 a month in gas, plus their insurance and maintenance and tires and all the other stuff, right? How many people could start paying $600-700? What if it gets higher and they're paying $900 a month for gas? They won't be able to go to work. Rent, mortgage, insurance, car payments, credit card payments, all the food costs. A lot of people won't be able to swing it. So what do? They'll carpool, they'll do different things, and they'll try to get by, but they're going to keep building up more credit card debt. It's going to be terrible for the economy. Europe is paying $7, $8, $9 a gallon for gas now, like we are. If it doubles, you think they're going to be able to go to work? Everything in America moves by truck. The trucks are going to be, their expenses are going to be going up. Everything you buy in the store, food and everything else, is going to get more expensive. The airplanes use gas. They're going to go crazy. So you take a Miami to New York flight, maybe you get round trip for $200-300. You're going to pay $600, $700, $900 now. A lot of goods from overseas move on maritime boats. They burn fuel. That's going to go up a lot. Iran could wreck the economies of the world. Okay? Russia and Iran have plenty of fuel. They supply North Korea. They supply China. $40 a barrel or something like that, right? Now, where else does the gas come from? Well, you got little countries that can't defend themselves on the Persian Gulf. Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, Oman, and let's just throw Saudi Arabia in for good measure, because the Houthis can attack the oil refineries. They've already done so twice. They've taken down the Aramco oil refinery, which is the biggest one in Saudi Arabia. But they only hit it one time with one missile each time. What if they hit it with 8 or 9 missiles? They keep shooting missiles all day and all night. Well, Saudi Arabia was able to get the oil refinery functioning again in a week or so, even less. But if it takes 8 or 9 hits, it may take 6 months. They do the same thing to Kuwait from Iraq, or, and they do it to the UAE. Now the production is reducing. On top of the shipping headache, the production's down. They want to see gas go to 300 a barrel. They'll take 200, but they love 300. At a doubling of, let's say, $170 a barrel, they're going to cause a lot of problems around the world. At a tripling, devastation. Everything you buy in the store is going to have a surtax for fuel. If you're buying a loaf of bread, I don't know, $3, it's probably going to be $3.25. But everything you go buy in the store goes up by 25 cents. Where does that leave you at the end of the month? In a bad way. Your canned goods will go up, your meat will go up, your fruit, your vegetables, it's all going to go up, 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 up. Home heating oil in the winter. My gosh. People in the cold states pay $600, $800, $900 a month now. What are they going to do if they have to pay $1,800 a month? Where is the money going to come from? And then combine it with the extra fuel for the cars. People don't have savings anymore. Savings were gone in the 80s. People don't save money anymore. They don't. They don't have it. They got credit card debt. The credit card companies aren't idiots. They're going to see the problems popping up in America, and they're going to see the bankruptcies coming. And they get wiped out in bankruptcies. They're going to start locking people down. They're going to reduce credit limits and stuff like that. You think the employers are going to give the people raises to go to work? That's not the mindset of the American employer. Some companies probably will, like defense contractors that have to get the work done for America. America will pay more for the goods and they'll be able to do that. Maybe food companies, some companies will. But in general, it's going to be chaos. That's what America's trying to stop. And they don't like Iran telling America, get your bases out of Iraq and Syria, we don't want you here. The Iraqi government doesn't want America there, and Syria doesn't want America there. But America takes it upon itself to override these world leaders and go there themselves, right? America has a double standard. There's a standard for themselves, and there's a standard for everybody else. Oh, America's not going to step down in the world stage as the most powerful country and give in to Iran. And leave Iraq and Syria and other places. There's American bases in Kuwait They usually keep 2,500 to 5,000 American soldiers in the bases in Kuwait. The same amount in the bases of the UAE. And they have a big Navy base. I don't know if they use it anymore in Bahrain. And Qatar is just a wild card. They're housing the high leaders of Hamas in the five-star hotels while they manage the war in Gaza. They're living in the lap of luxury in Qatar. I don't know why somebody doesn't go in and get them out of Qatar. That's what I think they should do. But morning from Florida. I know where Florida is. Shut down their air supply. Yeah, I agree. That's a great idea. Look, you take these trucks that fill up the gasoline service stations. You know, they go to the 7-Eleven and put the gas in and all that. They hold, I believe, 10,000 gallons. You get 10 of those trucks, right? 100,000 gallons of gas. You go to a few of the tunnel entrances, you take the hose from the truck, you drop it down the shaft into the tunnel, and you empty the trucks in the tunnel. Okay? Now you tell them they got an hour to get out, right? And surrender. Just take a cigarette and flick it down and you don't have Hamas anymore. Is that so hard? They burned America, they burned Israeli babies, women, children alive, and too. What would the two witnesses do if the Lord sends them into Hamas, into Gaza? They'll breathe fire down in there. But they'll get away with it because nobody can stop them. If Israel did it, oh my gosh, Israel would be called the Nazis, the genocide, the concentration camp. You know, we can't do it. But that would end it. We wouldn't have any more dead soldiers. It'd be all over. See, Israel's got a dilemma. What the heck did they do with 45,000 Hamas warriors? What do we do with them? We can't put them in jail. Where do they go? Nobody wants them. Jordan won't take them. Egypt won't take them. Saudi won't take them. Nobody's going to take them. Iran won't take them. Lebanon won't take them. What do we do with them? See the problem? Gaza is such a mess right now. How are they going to continue living in Gaza? And the war's not over. Give it another few weeks and see what kind of a mess it is then. All right, somebody said, sorry, it says it's 50. So I guess you mean Jeremiah 50, verse 23. That sounds better to me. Jeremiah 50, verse 23. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock, and with thee I will break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen. I will break in pieces. Okay. If you read Zechariah 12, it describes how we fight in Zechariah 12. It says the feeble one, the old feeble one, will fight like King David, like David. David killed Goliath, a bear and a lion. It says the house of David shall fight like the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord killed 130,000 in one day. That's what this is. Okay? God makes Israel the head of the nations, and that's what you're seeing happen. I'll be right back. If you got any more scripture questions, just put them up in the chat. I'll deal with them when I get back in a second. All right. So let me go through what you can expect in the immediate future. Israel already won the war with Hamas in Gaza. It's just a matter of loose ends. That's it. Okay? The war between Israel and Lebanon has already begun. And it will be cranking up gradually over the coming days. That's to provoke Hezbollah to increasing their attacks while we increase ours. Hezbollah, like Hamas, could care less about the civilians in Lebanon. They don't care. Just like Hamas. They'll use them as human shields and everything else. Now, they already do. The United States will probably join in. Unless Israel has told them, no, we want the reputation for ourselves. This is the logic. If you help us, America, then the other Muslim enemies in our neighborhood will wait till you're not here and say, oh, now we could attack Israel. America's not here to help them. So they want to send a message that they're perfectly capable of defending themselves. So we'll try to go it alone. I do believe America will take out the Houthis in Yemen. Okay? They have to. Or the shipping goes. They got to do it. And in the near future, America will concentrate on cleaning up these militias in Iraq and Syria. Now, just bombing them is not gonna cut it. Anybody that was a captain or higher in the military will tell you that. Of course, they hide. As you and me would. They hide. In civilian areas, in houses, buildings, hospitals, schools, and so forth. So they're going to have to do some more boots on the ground. So they already have the bases in Iraq and Syria. So they'll bring more soldiers into the bases. They'll bring more helicopters, more anti-missile systems, more drones, more missiles. And then they'll start sending them out on patrols with helicopter air support, jet flyover support. And they'll hunt down these militias and destroy them. They're not going to try to go in with rifles and kill them. They might have to, but they're going to try to go in with airstrikes and artillery and drone strikes and missile strikes and give them to keep the casualty rate down. America doesn't say, oh, let's go to war and get as many casualties as we can. Not in these days, they're not going to do that. They're going to try to keep the casualties down as best they can and destroy the enemy in wholesale quantities as cheaply and easily as they can. Well, the emphasis would not be cheaply, it would be on quickly and easily. So they will go after these militias. They want them out of the way first. Then comes the attack on Iran. Now they simultaneously, while they're clearing out the militias, they might start on Iran. How would that look? First thing they'll do is take out Iranian radar, any and all of it they can find in the country to stop their air defenses. And the Americans can do that. The go-fast boats can't do a thing about that, and the Iranian Navy can do next to nothing about it. And the Iranian Air Force can do nothing about it, and Russia's not going to go in. Nor will China. Once the air defenses are down, which will probably take 3 to 10 days, then they can fly over Iran all they want. Ground-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft, anti-missile missiles, are of no value without the radar. I mean, unless you try to aim them with line of sight, like a World War II anti-aircraft gun, and good luck with that. It's not going to work. In World War II, they were aiming at propeller planes going maybe 280 to 350 miles an hour. They weren't aiming at jets going at multiple times that rate of speed. It won't work. Then they'll start strategic targeting of military facilities. They'll hit drone factories if they're above ground, missile and ammunition and artillery shell factories if they're above ground, storage warehouses if they're above ground. They'll take out the aircraft, the runways, and the planes if they can get to them if they're above ground. They might start disabling bases that Iran has in the region, inside Iran, blowing up their refrigeration, their electrical plants, and water and roads and everything. Just start messing up their bases, and they're going to refrain from killing a lot of people. Okay, they're going to try to destroy places and things, not people. And then they're going to kick back and watch what Iran does. And I'll tell you what Iran's going to do. It's going to attack any and every American base it could get its hands on with its militias and then eventually the IRGC directly. And they'll launch missiles at any target America has in the region. I do not believe Iran has capability to shoot missiles all the way to Israel and hit Israel. I don't think so. I wouldn't be concerned about that. If this fails to work, then they're going to clean out the Persian Gulf from any Iranian naval presence. Then they're going to start bombing the coastline of Iran by the Persian Gulf. And that's going to take a week or two. And they'll soften that target up. Then they'll put probably 3,000 to 6,000 special forces, maybe expeditionary force Marines there with armor and armored Humvees and tanks, armored personnel carriers, armored mobile artillery. And they'll set up a preliminary beachhead. And then they'll reinforce them with thousands of more soldiers. Probably Marines, Rangers, more of the, not special forces, but the high-level soldiers. And they'll get it up probably about 10,000 soldiers. And then they feel they'll be able to secure it because they'll have a lot of armor, and they could bring in regular infantry soldiers, basically Marines and Army. And they'll put them on the beach too, and they'll keep increasing the numbers and then fortifying the beach. But before they do much, when they have, I don't know what the number would be, 10 or 20,000 on the beach, they'll push forward and they'll try to clear everything that could be enemy out for a good 25 miles or so from the beach, where they're going to stage a large amount of soldiers. That'll keep the immature missile attacks from landing on the beachhead, the Katyusha type things and the artillery and shoulder-fired rockets and all that. It will keep it out of there. And they'll have anti-missile systems to take care of any larger, more sophisticated missiles. And then they start landing, and then they got a 600-mile trek to get to Tehran. It's a very rough situation. And I don't know another way for them to do it unless they go genocide. And I don't think they will. So this whole situation where you've seen so far is the tip of the iceberg. And it's going to get like a mushroom. It's going to blow up very quickly now. Hezbollah and Iran and the Houthis are not going to back down. Forget that. It's never going to happen, okay? They're going to have to be taken out. It's on its way. It's on its way. I don't think America needs any more aircraft or naval ships here or supplies or anything. They've got everything they need. That's where we're at. You got to remember Jeremiah 30:11. God says he will destroy all the nations he dispersed the Jews into. That can't happen until right up to the second Exodus, because it has to be complete. And so, of course, it's unfulfilled. And it's going to get fulfilled in the next few weeks or months. And I reckon that to be about 125 nations around the world. destroyed. Not everybody dead, but the nations are destroyed because they built them up on Satan. And the Lord has a controversy with the nations over Zion. And these UN member nations, there's 163 that recognize Palestine as a state. Jehovah does not recognize Palestine as a state or a nation. That guy Amir is extremely loyal and patriotic to Israel, to the very extreme. He really is. He is a pre-trib rapture guy. He doesn't understand the snare. He doesn't talk about the year of redemption, the year of recompenses. He doesn't talk about the daughter of Babylon. He doesn't talk about Jeremiah 30. He doesn't talk about Zechariah 12. He basically goes with the church party line. That's what he does. In terms of Israel, is he really a strong supporter of, the strongest, super strong supporter of Israel. Yeah. Does he cover the war accurately? He does. He really does. He does. Yeah. Credit where credit is due. He does. But he can't put it together with Bible prophecy correctly. I don't see how. All the important prophetic passages he doesn't talk about, So, see, they leave out Zechariah 12 from their doctrine because it talks about the two witnesses burning the enemies up on the right hand and the left hand, and they don't want you to know that. And you should be able to surmise, in your own opinion, why they don't want you to know that. Which team are they actually on? Okay. Let's see what's been developing lately in the news here and social media, see if we got any major events. Well, the IDF is trying to bring incubators in for babies in one of the hospitals in Gaza. Nothing's coming with the hostages. What's going to happen when Hamas can't shoot rockets anymore? They're going to say, well, now we got to surrender out of this. We can't hurt Israel anymore. They may say this. Let's try to trade the hostages for our lives, and that's not going to work. They can't kill the hostages on social media. If they do that, all the protests in the world will fall on their face. They can't. I don't know what they're going to do. They got themselves painted in a corner. If they want to commit suicide, that's easy. They can do that. Our soldiers just took over the headquarters of the military police in Gaza. We already took over the Hamas parliament yesterday, and soldiers, special forces units posed inside the parliament. Reminiscent of the time when they stormed the Capitol and they were sitting in, Pelosi's office and all that stuff, Supposedly it's raining in Gaza today, and it might, listen to me carefully. Listen to this. This is a great ending if it happens. And you could pray about this, I believe. The tunnels have cracks and holes in them now from all the penetrator bombs and regular bombs. Rest assured. Okay? And these are the first rains of the winter of the season, the rainy season. And if the rains come in sufficiently, the tunnels may flood. Now, I don't think they're going to be sitting there walking around in water up to their upper lip saying, don't make waves, don't make waves. No, but they might be walking around in knee-deep water. And it's fun to sleep in knee-deep water for them, huh? And how about walking around wet all the time? And what does knee-deep water do to their ammo and their missiles and rockets and electrical supply, their phone lines and everything else? You can pray we get a lot of rain in Gaza. If you feel moved to. So we're finding out that these tunnels go into houses and mosques and hospitals and schools and all kinds of other stuff. These are sick individuals. No regard for the life of their own people. Why support a military that doesn't care if you get killed? We did find a room in the tunnels yesterday or the day before that we believe some hostages were held in. We found wire, to bind hands and stuff on chairs. So they bound them to the chairs. And we found diapers and baby bottles in there. Obviously, they moved them. Some more red alerts, rockets, probably from Gaza. I'll check in a second. Let's see where this latest barrage came from. Take a second, I'll tell you. The Gaza envelope, the Gaza area. Let me check the rest of the missiles. It was Gaza. It's incredible to me how they keep getting the missiles out, I think they manufacture them down in the tunnels. I have no evidence of this. I believe this. So I think at night they make another batch of missiles for the next day or something. But I could be entirely wrong. I don't know. Well, they're saying thunderstorms and heavy rain in Gaza. Our soldiers will bark down a little, but you better believe our tanks, our Humvees, our armored personnel carrier all operate just fine in the mud and everything. What do you think? We're crazy? It's the desert here. We know what we're doing. Look, when you're a soldier walking around in boots with a rain parka, it's a problem, you know. But I don't think we're going to let our soldiers walk around if they're bogged down in mud. It's too dangerous. The IDF is doing everything it can to keep a humanitarian priority going here. They're not, you know, they're not taking it lightly. Well, I don't see anything spectacular popping up in the news. Might have a prayer request here. 1 second. Actually, it's not a prayer request. Okay. So, I hope I was able to convey to you what's going on. I live here, so I know what's going up, okay? And Biden does not understand that you can't threaten Iran and Hezbollah. It doesn't work because they're afraid. You bring 8 aircraft carriers here and 900 airplanes, and B-1s and B-2s and F-35. They're going to think you're afraid to use them. When you use them, then they'll try to figure out a way to get over on you with sleeper agents or something. And if they can't, then they'll try to negotiate with you. But Biden's barking up the wrong tree with this. He wants to go sing "Give Peace a Chance," they're going to laugh at him. If he wants to go sing "Give the F-35s a chance to blow your heads off," that's they'll listen to. Not until he uses the military hard. It's got to hit him hard. That'll show them that he's ready to make a full commitment to take them out. Then they'll worry. He's not scaring anybody. He's not scaring anybody. Okay, so I'm Moshe. My wife's Rivka. Please pray for us for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our finances. Pray for healing. Thank you for the offerings. Those of you that are giving offerings, the offering information is in the description box under the video. We take GoFundMe and Patreon, two big fundraiser deals. And pray for our animals and pets, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. They're all rescues. And pray that we don't have to go into the bomb shelters in my area. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And these are the days of Elijah, and it's going down right now. We're in month 4 of the year of recompenses, year of redemption. So nothing's going to take a long time. So what I got, make sure you subscribe so if stuff starts happening suddenly, I'll come on with live streams here, and you'll get the notice if you click the notification bell and you subscribe. You want to join me on Telegram and get the blow-by-blow of the war. I update at least 100 times a day, at least, maybe 200 some days, 300 even. You download the app, Telegram Messenger. It's free. Install it. Send me an email. My email address is in the chat. It's in the lowest line down in the description box. It's Israel Giving with the number 7. That's one word, Israel Giving with the digit 7 at gmail.com. And just put in the subject header, Telegram. I'll know what you mean. I'll send you the invite link. You click on it in 3 seconds, you're in. It's all free. It's all free. There's no money involved. The app's free. Telegram's free. They got 700 million users. It's no trouble. It works great. Okay, you'll see a lot of videos there. You'll see a lot of pictures. You'll get translations of social media posts out of Hebrew and sometimes Arabic and stuff like that. Okay, kids, so I'm out, and thank you. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach.